So I'm going to talk to you about radical innovation. And I'm going to talk to you about a few programs that we're doing at MIT. Now, how many people here have been to Cambridge, Massachusetts recently? So about a third of you, you've experienced our ecosystem. There's something going on there. It is really exciting. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are harnessing technology in really amazing ways to build new companies and really expand wealth. So I want to introduce you to a gal named Leslie Dewan. Now, does anyone here know who Leslie Dewan is? Oh, good. I'm going to tell you a story then. So Leslie Dewan, I met her in 2013. She started her company in 2011 when she graduated from MIT. And I met her at an event that we were doing. In fact, there she is. You can't see in this picture, unfortunately, I didn't do a very good job with this presentation, but she has some spectacular shoes on. So of course she and I bonded immediately because I'm just in love with shoes, and we're talking about my dream of making a shoe company that the shoes look like stilettos, but feel like sneakers. Now, ladies in this room, how many of you would buy that? Woo! Exactly. So we bonded over this and we talked about, oh, well, you could do that, and I have these friends that are programmers, and then we could use 3D printing and we could create these shoes, and then we'll create a really cool app, and then we'll ship them around the world and do that. So it was this really fun story that we crafted this whole idea and a whole pathway to do it, and we decided that we were going to partner with Nike and make that happen. Sound radical? Sound cool, and that's what I would love to do, and that's what she and I fantasized about. But that's not actually at all what Leslie does. In fact, Leslie Dewan has a PhD in nuclear engineering, and what she's doing is truly radical. She is trying to create a completely new type of nuclear power. And she's using a technology that's actually a fairly old technology. It was created in the 50s, but in fact is never used. So it's a pebble bed reactor. And she is trying to build a nuclear power company. That's her startup. Now, so the shoe part, that was just a fantasy that she and I were talking about. And I wanted to show that as an example of, in fact, there is an entrepreneurial ecosystem out there that can create those types of lifestyle companies. We've seen them. And you just harness social media, and you can become an entrepreneur, and your valuations can go like this, and you get venture funding, and you either have, you go public or you get acquired by someone. So I think we all know that there is a strong ecosystem for those types of companies. What does not exist right now is a strong ecosystem for a gal like Leslie that is a CEO of a new type of energy company that is trying to build a nuclear power company. Who are her peers? Where is she finding the talent? Where is she finding nuclear engineers? I'm not sure if she's finding them sitting next to her at the Starbucks, like she was finding the app developer for the shoe company. So we're thinking really hard about what are the tools that a radical entrepreneur needs to create a new type of company that is going to make a dramatic impact on our world. So the idea around this is something that was put forward by MIT President Raphael Reif. This idea of how do we deliver innovation to the world and the tools that young entrepreneurs need that are building, harnessing innovation to build really new and radical type companies. So the concept here is the idea of creating innovation orchards. And you actually see innovation orchards in some places already. So in Silicon Valley, we have innovation orchards for people that are creating consumer apps, like my shoe app that I was talking about. So if you go out to Silicon Valley and you create a good pitch deck and you talk about that you're going to do this new consumer type product and you're going to build an app and you're going to get this segment and you get a bunch of venture money and you find some programmers to do it, there's a path. If you're in Boston and you're doing a biotech company, we've got a very strong biotech ecosystem in Kendall Square. There is the universities around it, there is a lot of talent that you can harness, there's a lot of creative ideas, and there's funding. So those two paths, there is an innovation orchard that already exists, and you see a lot of activity and a lot of companies with ripe fruit, is what we call it, that are creating big clusters around these types of technologies. And then you're seeing that model come up here. I was just visiting the incubators in the Emirates Towers. And there's a number of things where how we're creating digital technologies. But what about Leslie Dewan? What about someone who is trying to create a nuclear power company? What about someone who is trying to create a new type of battery that will power an entire city? How are we supporting those people? There's a lost potential that a lot of these big ideas are not making it to market because they need billions of dollars to actually scale what they're doing. They need different type of talent that aren't just programmers, but they're actually PhDs in very specialized things. Where are they finding what they need? They need patient capital. And by patient capital, we mean that they're not going to scale or fail in that hockey stick that you often see with a company like Facebook or Twitter or all of those things, and they're going to get these multiples within a 5 to 10 year exit. They have 20-year spans that they need to mature. So how are we supporting them? Oh, and the other thing, as I was insinuating, they need special equipment. So why do they need all that money? They need all that money often because they are building a nuclear reactor. How do you create a prototype for that? So they need special equipment. So what we are doing at MIT to support this new type of entrepreneur that in the world we really need, because we are going to have 9 billion people on this planet, and we need new types of energy. We need to be able to create water and food for these people. We need to develop new types of education and healthcare. And how are we going to do that? That's the hard stuff. And we need to focus on that. So let me play this video for you to hear more about it.
In Massachusetts, we know a thing or two about revolutionary ideas. And at MIT, we know a thing or two about innovation and entrepreneurship. Together, the universities, communities, and industries of Greater Boston have transformed this region into one of the hottest innovation ecosystems on the planet. A place that's home to everything from the most dynamic and forward-thinking companies to the startups nipping at their heels. But we and other innovators in the area got to thinking, what if we could go further? What if we could cut the time it takes for world-changing ideas to go from lab bench to marketplace? Help entrepreneurs find support to take on the most difficult challenges. Accelerate growth in the toughest technologies to tackle the toughest problems. What could we build to make this a reality? We build an accelerator to help ambitious startups get from concept to company and from prototype to production. We provide financial support for innovations that require long lead times to develop. And we'd establish a network linking the ecosystems of Cambridge, Boston, and beyond to share vital equipment, makerspace, and diverse talent. We'd rally our colleagues across the region and together make more than financial commitments. We would make a pledge to use our energies, our brains, and our skills to push the boundaries of the possible. We would build a new kind of accelerator, one as tough as the technologies it will drive, as revolutionary as the ideas it will support. To do all this, we would build an engine.
Thank you. And yes, that was a flying plane car in that video. I totally want one. So the engine, as I said, our mission is to empower and enable the most radical entrepreneurs that are trying to do something that is really, really hard. And we want them to be able to make their dreams a reality. And how can they harness technology to solve really big challenges? So there's 4 main ingredients to the engine, and let me take you through them. In fact, you probably have heard of a lot of these things before. I don't think that the components of the engine are particularly radical, but in fact, it is the way that we're putting them all together, number 1, and number 2, the types of entrepreneurs that we are trying to cultivate with this, and what we're trying to do is really what's unique about it. So the first part, nothing really works without money. $150 million fund, it's a venture fund. And the point on the venture fund is what I mentioned before, this idea of patient capital. Capital, it's an 18-year fund. So the idea that we want to allow our entrepreneurs to have a much longer runway so that their car plane can actually take off. So first is the venture fund. We are starting that. MIT is contributing $25 million of our money, and then we have a number of investors that are part of that. We're closing the first round of 100 at the end of this month, and then we will have a follow-on round from there. In addition to that, we will be raising a number of other funds as follow-on to that, and we're going to be building a syndicate of like-minded investors that are absolutely looking for a return on their investment, but with that, they want to balance the idea of impact, and that just as important as getting a return on their investment is making a dramatic impact and supporting a lot of these developments that really need to happen. So that's the money. The second part is an incubator and accelerator program for the startups themselves. So we are building a specific criteria for the types of companies we want, and we want ones that are going to be radical, that are really trying to do something big, that will take a long time to develop, such as Leslie Dewan with her nuclear power reactor, such as someone who's building a grid-scale battery, such as someone who's creating a completely new type of diagnostic that will help millions and millions of people. But they don't really have the funding or the runway to do that right now. Around that, we want to help to develop talent that will support those types of companies. We're putting together specific programs and building spaces that they need. So in the video, you saw a lot of different types of equipment. They need that. We want to be able to unlock that. So let me tell you about Leslie again. When Leslie was getting her PhD at MIT, she had access to millions of dollars of equipment that helped her to build what she was doing. When she left MIT, she no longer had any access to any of that. How does she get access to the equipment that she needs? Okay, so that piece of equipment costs $10 million. Is she going to raise money to buy something that she needs really only one day a month? So we're going to unlock all of the equipment at MIT for these startups, as well as we're partnering with companies all around town to start. So GE, Flextronic, Autodesk. In fact, my colleague here, Paul, IDEO, is one of our partners that's going to be helping with radical new ways of thinking and organizing innovation. Novartis, we're partnering with a lot of biotech companies too in thinking about how do we help startups to access patients and be able to test things in a rapid manner. So thinking about all of the tools that we can unlock. The way that we're doing that is by the third component, which is called the engine room. Now what this is, it's like an Airbnb for equipment, lab space, expertise, and services. And this is a program that we're taking all of that excess capacity, putting it on a platform so that our startups can basically rent what they need. and so that they will have access to that $5 million laser that they weren't able to afford to buy, that can help them build their prototype and help them advance what they're doing. Experts, so that we're going to be assembling a whole crew of experts on different types of technologies, as well as advising on the different things that they need on how to build their companies. So the engine room is the third part. And then the fourth part, I think is really important, and actually one of my favorite parts, is that with the engine, we're not only thinking about sort of this short period of time, but we're actually thinking about the entire pipeline of entrepreneurs and these types of entrepreneurs that are really going to take on these big, audacious problems. And we're doing a K through 12 program around invention education. And how do you really think about changing kids' mentalities and giving them the courage to become an inventor and to actually think in that manner and unlock their creativity and allow them to think much bigger and actually believe that if they can think it up, that it's possible. And so right now we're doing our pilot program that we're working with the mayor of Cambridge and the school system of Cambridge to launch this invention education program as part of the engine. But it's a program that we actually want to take global. And in fact, that's one of the really interesting things about the engine is we're going to build this in the Cambridge ecosystem because as MIT, that's the one that we know and we're right there. But we want this to be transportable. And we want it to be a program that we really open to the world and that we partner with everyone around the world. Because ultimately, for these entrepreneurs to be able to address these big global challenges, they need to be talking to people in the world. They need to be interacting with people that are actually facing the challenges themselves. And so we're going to be creating a lot of exchange programs to bring people in, as well as take our entrepreneurs in different places in the world to experience the challenges that they're trying to address. The engine launched. We just started. I was the first person hired to do it. So we have an audacious goal that we just announced in October. We will be opening the doors for our first space in Cambridge in April. We're closing the fund, as I said, and then over the next 2 years, we'll be opening another 200,000 square feet, and we expect to have about 40 to 60 startups and founders in our program within the next 2 years. And that's really just the beginning. So check out engine.xyz, and I hope that you'll hear a lot more about it in the coming days. So that was the first program I wanted to tell you about, and I'm super excited about that one. And that's really focusing on high potential entrepreneurs and how do we create an ecosystem to support them. Now the second one is another aspect around radical innovation, and is thinking about going back to the idea that we're facing big challenges. And one of them that is ever so important is climate. And the idea of how do we really change behavior? How do we engage people on every single level to become part of the solution? And so at MIT, we've launched something called the Climate Colab. And that is, how do we use collective intelligence and people all around the world that are experiencing these challenges to actually contribute to being part of the solution? So how many here in this room actually believe that you could do more to contribute to solving the climate issue? How many of you feel that perhaps you're not doing enough? See, and I think that that's a lot of people believe that we are facing this challenge, but we're not sure what we can do to help. And so what we came up with was this platform that looks at things on a local level, then we create plans on a national level, and then we integrate them for how they can work on a global level. Because ultimately, to really address this big systemic problems, we need to be thinking about things on all of those different levels. This program's been around for a little while, and we're engaging people from all around the world. So 170 countries, people from 170 countries are working with it already. We have almost 80,000 people that are part of the community, but we want to 100x that, because ultimately, unless we gauge a lot of people, we're really not going to make the progress that we need. These are some of the organizations that we're working with already, but we're working on creating an accelerator program right now to quadruple what we are doing. And these are just some of the ideas that have been submitted by the community that we're actually working on implementing already. And if you're interested in taking action now, we actually do have a program that is open that you can submit or tell your friends about it, that is thinking about climate hazards and how can we look at these massive different types of storms and how weather's changing fundamentally and what we can do to address that issue. So the Climate Colab is another community and way that I encourage you to get involved, get engaged, become part of innovation. Because ultimately, unless we're all engaged at every level, we're not going to make the progress that we need.